We are the Out of Bounds Show. On a Monday, recapping the weekend, wild college football and the NFL. You're listening to ESPN 105.9 The Zone. The show is brought to you by the GMC Sierra Truck at Fowler Buick GMC in Brandon. Hauling, towing, hunting camp, farm, road trips, you name it. Jump in a GMC Sierra Truck, test drive one this week at Fowler Buick GMC in Brandon. Twitter handle at BowBounds. All of our guests join us on the New Belgium Fat Tower Hotline, and our next guest is Steve Palazzolo, NFL insider, ProFootballFocus.com. And Steve, it's been too long. Good morning. How are you?
Doing great. Thanks for having me back.
Well, we appreciate it. Dak Prescott. So Vegas thought that, hey, Vegas had Pittsburgh as the favorite. You kind of got a sense that people in the business in Vegas thought that this would be the week where a defense may get the better of Dak Prescott. And I understand he's surrounded with a very, very talented personnel in the offensive line and Ezekiel Elliott. But what is your takeaway from Prescott continuing to, I guess, beat the odds, so to speak, with road wins against Washington, Green Bay, and now Pittsburgh?
Well, yeah, I mean, he just continues to impress. I mean, the more I looked at this game, I was kind of like in Pittsburgh, too, even though I picked Dallas initially. But it was more because of Pittsburgh's offense. I still, we saw a lot of that, their ability to move the ball quickly at the end of the game to take the lead. So I thought that Pittsburgh's offense would have success against Dallas, which they did. Their defense still isn't very good in Pittsburgh, so not surprised that Dallas was able to score the way that they did. But I'll tell you what, Dak is extremely impressive with the way he's handled pressure, the way he moves in the pocket, and I think most importantly how he's bounced back from mistakes. He hasn't been perfect. I know that the legend continues to grow, but, he still fumbled yesterday, and I thought that the Eagles game on Sunday Night Football was a pretty poor effort overall. But in all of those games, he bounces back, makes big throws when necessary, and then that running game with Ezekiel Elliott and probably the best offensive line in all of college, in all of the NFL, certainly a huge factor. So it's been fun to watch Dallas completely kind of revamp their team, and Dak is right in the middle of it.
Steve Palazzolo, ProFootballFocus.com on ESPN 105.9 The Zone. You mentioned his pocket presence. I always hear about the best QBs create space in the pocket, and I think everybody thought that once he felt pressure, he would immediately break and run out of the pocket. Yet yesterday he had pressure, stays in the pocket, hits Dez down the sideline on the fly route or whatever. How impressed are you that he continues to stay in the pocket, go through his progressions, take hits, and a lot of times complete the pass? Steve?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely been the most impressive part because, just yesterday under pressure, 6 for 9, 96 yards, threw the touchdown. When he during the preseason, you could kind of see it, just a comfort level within the pocket, always keeping his eyes downfield. Again, it wasn't always something that we saw at Mississippi State, and I think between that and cutting down on the poor decisions, those turnover-worthy type plays, because he made a lot of threw a lot of passes into coverage, I think, in college that he's cut back on so far in the NFL. So I think it's that pocket presence, that ability to stay calm under pressure, create the room, as you say, but also cutting back on the turnover-worthy plays, I think has just been a huge part of his success.
It's tough to do this with, whether or not he can do this for a while, whether it's 4, 5, 6, 7 years in the NFL, and it's early. And again, he walked into this amazing situation where it wasn't a crappy team, like the Rams or the Browns and so on. So, what do you think going forward? Is he a guy that can play for a while in this league?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you look at the places where he is strong, the things that we just mentioned, those are things that work over time. I'm not expecting him to crash and burn by any means, but certainly the fact that he's improved his accuracy and decision making so much since college. I think, if there's a little bit of regression along the way, I wouldn't be surprised.
Right.
But like I said, his ability to bounce back has been the most impressive thing to me. Even when he's not having a great game, still being able to bounce back and make plays, that's the stuff that the great quarterbacks do. And I'm not saying he's going to be this top 5 quarterback in the NFL, But it's one of those things I think that will keep him around absolutely for a long time. So count me as a guy that called him a middle round pick that is extremely impressed right now, and he continues to make me a believer every week. And again, I think there will be games where he makes a few bad decisions, where his accuracy is all over the place. That's what happened against Philadelphia.
Right.
But his ability to have that amnesia that QBs need to come back and make big plays, that's been most impressive.
NFL insider Steve Palazzolo, ProFootballFocus.com, on the Out of Bounds show and the New Belgium Fat Tire Hotline. Steve, I thought he had a couple opportunities to maybe the better decision yesterday would have been to tuck it and run, and he decided not to. Did you see any of that?
Nothing that came out offhand, maybe a couple plays here and there, but I'm actually so surprised that he's not, a bigger part of the run game. We saw what he did, in college where, the design running game was a big part of it. He would scramble when necessary. But most quarterbacks that have that ability to run, when they do transition to the NFL, will rely on it. He's not RG3 by any means, but think about what RG3 did when he came into the league. His ability to run just opened everything up in the pass game for his success. Dak hasn't used his running ability at all, pretty much in the NFL, other than a couple of zone reads here and there and a couple timely first downs on scramble. So I think that part of his game too, it's almost like this trump card that he's sitting on. Yeah, he can scramble, he can make a few plays if he needs to, but he hasn't relied on it at all to this point.
What do you make of what they do in let's say Dak has a terrible game in the next 6 weeks before the playoffs, Steve. Does it take one for you to put Romo in, knowing that when Romo's healthy, he's a top 10 quarterback without a doubt? Some would say top 5, top 6 when he's been healthy. Or would it be 2 games where Dak would have to play poorly for you to make the switch? Or maybe not at all?
It would have to be at least 2 for me. I mean, this is, when we were back in week 3, week 4, I was saying, no. Put Romo back in. He has the track record. But every single week, I'm more impressed with what Dak can do. And I do think it would take a huge step back, because not only is he playing pretty well, but there is something to this whole rallying your teammates and all the stuff that he got praised for in college and at the Senior Bowl when we were down there. People raved about his leadership, the stuff that we can't quantify. And I come from Pro Football Focus where we quantify everything. But there is an unquantifiable aspect to his game, I think, that is also leading to some of the success for Dallas. So I think there's an element of not wanting to mess up a good thing. I think it would take at least 2 disastrous type games where he doesn't pull off the comeback in the end that they'd have to think, okay, maybe it is time to go to Tony Romo. And this is me coming from, I think Tony Romo is an excellent NFL quarterback. I think he'd be having just as much success statistically and in win-loss record as Dak is, perhaps better. But I do think there's this element of not messing up what they have right now.
Yeah, I mean, what do you do if you're Romo, Steve? I mean, how frustrating. You look, you love the fact that team is 8-1 and won 8 in a row, but I agree with you. Romo healthy, maybe doing it a little bit different way, but is having the same type of success. I mean, how do you think how do you think he's really handling this?
Oh, I'm sure it's not
driving
easy.
him crazy.
I mean, I know that they were trying to read his lips on the sideline, and they were saying, oh, it's his time. He was not saying it's his time. I think he said that's a dime. He said that's a great throw by Dak. But people trying to create this controversy on what Romo's thinking. Of course he's competitive. I mean, it is the Brady-Bledsoe situation. Not saying Dak's going to go win 4 Super Bowls and be the best of all time, but it is that situation where Bledsoe thought he should have been playing absolutely, over Tom Brady. And he had a right to think that, and Romo has a right to think that as well. So he's a competitor, and, he's just got to be ready to play because you never know what's going to happen. But I'm sure it's eating him up a little bit because he wants to be out there, especially with a team that's rolling the way they are. And the last time Romo was healthy, it's not like they were 8-8. They were 12-4 or whatever it was, and Romo was the top QB in the league from a passer rating standpoint. So, he's 1 year removed from being the guy here that led them to the playoffs.
All right, NFC. Dallas just won on the road against Pittsburgh, but the Seahawks just beat the Patriots. So as we go down the stretch here, who's number 1, who's number 2 for you in the NFC?
I mean, record-wise, obviously Dallas has the advantage, but you just look at Seattle rounding into form. It's the same thing they do every year. They kind of sleepwalk for them through September and October. Russell Wilson plays some pretty good football, and then he turns it on in November and December. It looks like they're hitting their stride. So, I mean, by the end of the year, I think Seattle ends up being the best team in the NFC with that defense and what Wilson's doing, what C.J. Prosise is doing out of the backfield now. They just continue to get better. Dallas is so interesting to me because of what they're doing defensively. They don't get a lot of pressure on the QB, which is usually a formula for disaster, but they're covering so well on the back end. I wonder if they can keep that up. If guys like Mo Claiborne can continue to play well and cover well on the back end, because it's just not really in line with what he's done in his entire career and what those guys have done in their entire career. So can guys like Brandon Carr and Scandrick and Byron Jones, can they keep it up with so little pass rush? I think that's my big question with Dallas right now.
When Steve Palazzolo is an NFL insider, ProFootballFocus.com. He's on the New Belgium Fat Tire Hotline. We're recapping the weekend. We're a Saints town, Steve. That was a heartbreaker, man. Did you think his foot was out, or was it just impossible to tell? The Denver Broncos, once they blocked the PAT, and he's running down the sideline, he's wearing a white shoe on a white sideline. Was it just impossible to tell with the angles?
Yeah, I would assume it was just too much to overturn. It looked like he was out to me. That was an absolute heartbreaker for New Orleans, because I actually like them to potentially make a run right now. I've been saying, if as much as I like Drew Brees, and I think he's still playing at an elite type level, but if they can continue to just run the ball and protect that defense a little bit, they have a chance. And I like the formula that they've been dialing up in recent weeks. But they just, turned the ball over at inopportune times yesterday, and and they just didn't take advantage of the fact that Trevor Siemian was trying to lose the game, because I didn't think Siemian was very good at all. So that is a huge loss, heartbreaker, even beyond that last play. I mean, honestly, the Saints never should have been in that situation, because they were in control of the game and then blew it well before anyone stepped out of bounds potentially. So I think they have themselves to blame for that loss even before any controversy came up.
All right, who's a team that we're not talking about? Who's a team that you're looking at and you're thinking, hey, watch out what they could do over the next 6 weeks?
Well, I mean, Seattle fits that bill. I mean, the Dolphins are rolling right now. I still look at the Chiefs as a team, and this isn't a surprise because their record's really good. But when I look at the AFC, and there always seems to be, a team that can play really good defense is going to go on a run like Denver did last year. Kansas City has that ability to play championship-level defense. So I think they need to be taken extremely seriously. I know this isn't groundbreaking because they do have a good record, but just like Denver was able to use their defense to carry them to the Super Bowl last year, I think Kansas City needs to be taken seriously in that light. And then, of course, Seattle in the NFC, because, when it does come down to crunch time, the teams that can actually play some lockdown defense have a great shot to win, and the Chiefs are right in that boat. And last, are we sleeping on the Giants and Eli? I don't know. I think they're about what they are, which is a 9-7 type of team, 8-8, 9-7 type of team. We'll see tonight. Big game against Cincinnati, but I think they still have. I think they're playing a little over their heads defensively, because they've really improved quite a bit on the back end. Have to give them credit. I want to see if they can keep that up. Still not getting after the quarterback nearly as often as they should. It's all JPP and Olivier Vernon. No help from the interior guys. And honestly, I think Eli's getting away with a lot this year from a passing standpoint, getting quite a bit of help from guys like Odell Beckham and Sterling Shepard. So we'll see. They've got some holes, and it's a pretty competitive NFC East. Yeah, that was a nice pick, Sterling Shepard out of Oklahoma. Kudos to the Giants on that one. He is Steve Palazzolo, NFL insider, ProFootballFocus.com. Thanks, Steve. Have a great week, man. Thank you. Appreciate it. Steve joined us on the New Belgium Fat Tire Hotline, and we're live in the Bank Plus studio, and we welcome you in. I'm looking at the front page of the Clarion Nashville, and it has Shea Patterson on there. Freshman leads big fourth quarter rally for win. A star is born. A star is born. Oxford, they're going nuts. You got two teams that you're more talented than coming up, Vanderbilt and Mississippi State, two of the bottom three
teams in the league, 4 teams in the league to wrap up the year. You could pull a pretty crappy team in the bowl game and go on a 4-game winning streak to close out the year and go 8-5. So straight ahead, how would 8-5 taste compared to where you started this season and what happened with the 2 big leads? We're live in the Bank Plus studio. The Out of Bounds Show, ESPN Radio, ESPN 105.9 The Zone. You can watch the show on our Facebook page, The Out of Bounds Show. We've got the video link right there. Or you can watch live on the Out of Bounds Radio app. We've got that there too, all right? You're listening to ESPN 105.9 The Zone. Straight ahead, Shea Buer.